Welcome to week 7 of Uncommon Ground as we dive in and just kind of dissect a little bit about what we heard this week. So David, thanks for taking the time to hang out with us.
Sure, Jason, happy to be here. Yeah,
absolutely. So let me just ask you a question to get started here, because I didn't grow up in your typical family, and so I've never experienced a family meeting.
Is that right? No family meetings?
No family meetings for me. So what kind of imagery or words come to mind when you think about family meetings? Positive, negative? What's that look like?
So if I were to remember, it seems like, Jason, it was usually not good news, or we were, as kids, we'd done something that we were all in trouble, but it was collective. It was more than just one of us getting into trouble. So I had a sister that was a year older than me, a brother that was 7 years younger, and usually it was something a little bit more heavy, a little bit more serious. Seems like it usually would be in the living room, which rarely did we go in the living room, but they would sit us down in the living room and have that discussion. So yeah, usually bad news.
Okay, so you knew it was time to focus and pay attention.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's great. Well, let me tell you, as we talk about family meeting stuff, I'm always excited because I just think about, hey, cool, what's next for our church? And particularly excited about the news that you shared this week as we continue to just leverage influence and be able to make a bigger impact across Pennsylvania and even with online across the country and across the world. So real excited for what's coming.
It's actually fun, Jason, with you doing this today because you're from that part of the state, so you know that area well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Very familiar with it all.
Yeah, that's home for me. So as I think about LCBC extending a footprint or just even having a partnership with a church in that area, I get excited because I have friends, I have family and classmates
that
still live there. So real excited for that.
Yeah, that's great. That's fun.
So I wonder if you could walk us through this a little bit, this process. You've said a few times throughout our history as a church, we've had to really wrestle with the question, is God done with LCBC? Are we done introducing more people to Jesus? And so I'd love for you to just kind of give us a behind the scenes process of what that means, what it looks like to really answer and evaluate that question from a pastor standpoint and from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah. So basically what you're doing with people, Jason, is you're taking them through change and kind of that whole change process. And so all the way back early years when it was just adding our first time a second gathering, people thought it was going to be the end of the world that we were adding a second gathering. So helping people go, it's going to be okay. Walking them through it and not getting too far ahead, but then going ahead because there are fears there. But if you wait for the fears to subside, then you're not going to move at all. So you kind of walk people through that change process. As we started talking about buildings, then all of a sudden it was money. And so people were not only saying, okay, we're going to build a bigger building, but this is going to cost something. And before, when we were adding gatherings, it didn't cost anything financially. And so helping people see, okay, this is worth investing in, this is worth an eternal investment, the return of that investment will be great. So it's kind of helping people through that. So each time it's just trying to vision and say, okay, this is a good thing, it will be good. And so even like now with Parker Hill, I think this has the potential to be a great thing. Each time we've done something like this with Branch Creek, it was to get us into a new part of the state. And whether Philadelphia or Columbia Montour up in the Bloomsburg area, or now Parker Hill up in the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area. And so we look at that and go, man, this is great. And it's a church that we feel like we just have a lot of connection with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, real excited for it. And one of the things that I love about our church is just that desire to continue to impact people and to introduce people to Jesus. So super excited for that.
And Jason, I just say real quick, I know one of the hesitations sometimes, at least it was with Branch Creek, it was with Columbia Montour, where people go, oh, we're not growing organically. And some people say, oh, you're just trying to buy your growth. And I would say, that's not at all the plan. The plan is to say, man, if we can team with people in another part of the state, then LCBC can start influencing more broadly that part of the state. Otherwise, if we just keep going 20 minutes out, it's going to take us 50, 100 years to get to all the different parts of the state. So we actually hope this happens more across the state to get us into new areas, and then from there organically grow. So it's a combination of both, but it's all to say, man, what can we do to achieve that goal of impacting Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great plan. And what's I think powerful about it and maybe super strategic is that, again, you're not starting from scratch. You're not having to go in and learn an area. You're already partnering with people who are native, who know the area, who have a heart, who've tilled the soil for years.
Exactly. And it's changed for the congregation that comes in with us, but actually it's been a great thing thus far. And so we know that there are people that didn't stick around, but those that did are very, very enthusiastic towards LCBC. Every time the board that was at that church that joined with us, all those board members are still a part of LCBC and excited about what's going on. So we look and go, we think it's been real successful thus far and excited about this opportunity as well.
That's great. So let me ask you again personally, as we've gone through the last 9 months and everything's looked different, for churches all around the world.
Yeah.
Have you wrestled with that question? Is God done with us? Is he done with us introducing people to Jesus in this season? What does that look like for you as you've processed that?
It's just changed, Jason. Before, everything seemed like we were in a rhythm. We knew what to do. We knew how to do it and do it well. We knew how to measure success. What COVID did for us is make us go, how do we even know if we're successful anymore? Because before, you would see people in the building, you'd see kids there, you knew who was there, you knew how many were there. And so you measured by that because that was probably the easy way to do it. Now we don't have people in the building. So you go, how many people are really engaging or not? And so we've had to change the way we measure engagement. It's not just showing up at the building anymore. Now it's, are you a part of a group? Are you showing up at one of the gatherings online or in person? Are you serving in some capacity? So now we have to change the way we do all of that, and even how do we connect with people individually. So one of the goals for us as a church is that our staff is connecting with every single adult that we have information on as part of LCBC. And so that ends up being, and I know you're a part of it, I think too, but that's 26,000 people every month that our staff reaches out to and makes a contact with. And that's been actually a great thing for us. So there's some real positives with it, but it's been challenging. And we got into COVID thinking, oh my goodness, are we going to be able to survive or not? And so initially it was more self-preservation. And then once we realized, okay, we can survive, and not only can we survive, we can thrive, then it's allowed us to move ahead even with things like Parker Hill. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. And one of the phrases that you've used even with us as a staff, kind of from the overseers, saying, hey, in times of war, plan for peace.
Yeah.
And so now kind of just seeing the other side of that is, hey, what does God have for us next? And the ability to be able to dream again and really just think about the future.
Yeah, that's a phrase that one of our elders used back in the summer. And it's one that stuck with us as a staff, and I love using it. And it's just the premise that, yeah, things are hard right now, but at some point, we're probably going to come out of this. And historically, if you look back through history, we always have. And it'll look different when we come out, but we'll still come through it. And so saying peace will come at some point, and it feels like war now, but man, if we're smart and we plan for peace, we'll be that much further ahead. When everybody else is just kind of getting their bearings, we'll be able to be running and moving forward. So yeah, I think I love that phrase.
Yeah, that's great. So as I watch that clip again of the Titanic and just the lifeboats, it's a powerful scene. And so even all these years later, I remember watching that as a little kid.
Yeah.
But just again, tying it to our mission and just thinking about our responsibility as a church, I'm curious, why do you think that kind of the human heart and really sometimes the reputation of the church is known for wanting comfort and security versus, hey, we've got to go on that rescue mission that God has called us to?
You know what's interesting for us, even here at LCBC, when everybody comes to the church and everything that we do, we try to say, let's make it as attractive as possible so that somebody that's coming that doesn't know Jesus will have opportunity to be introduced to Jesus. So we try to plan the music around that. We try to, the language we use and just talk in normal language, all of that. And so when somebody comes, they go, oh, I love this. And then things have to keep changing. And so all of a sudden, well, what I loved 6 months ago, it's a little different now. And so people have to make that shift and realize, all of us do, it's not about me, it's about others. And so we say in our First Steps classes, we used to be newcomers class all the time of, it's great that you love LCBC the way it is now, and we planned it for you as you come into LCBC. But now that you're here, it's not for you anymore, it's for others. And so instantly there's got to be that shift. And people sometimes struggle with that shift. And all of us are, I'm the same way. I like things my way, and I like things to be comfortable. And whether I'm choosing restaurants or whatever it may be, wherever I go, it's like, okay, the more comfortable I can be, the better off I am. And so that's just a natural human response to things. But when we bring it into church, all of a sudden we go, oh, I like it my way, and we get real possessive and fight for what we think are our rights, and we forget about the people that haven't yet been introduced to Jesus. And so for us as a church, we've always said, when people get mad at us for changing things or for reaching out to others, if they're already in the boat, if they're already going to heaven, it's okay. They can go to another church and get what they think they need there. Yeah. But people that are out in the water, there's not many lifeboats out there pulling people in, and so that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah, I love that. That's real powerful. Real powerful imagery there. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So we've been talking 6 weeks now about uncommon ground. How do we treat people with civility? How do we show them honor? And how do you think that the mission of the church is really critical to making that a reality in the lives of others as we go out and we build relationships with people who are different than us?
Yeah. So one of the things I said in the message is one of the easiest, simplest ways to introduce people to Jesus is to love others and then tell our story. And so I think it is that two-sided thing. And so what we've been talking about in Common Ground is how do we love others? And if we're obnoxious people, if I, because of the way you look or dress or the color of your skin, shut you down, I've got no opportunity to pull you into the boat. And so love is definitely the first step. But the flip side of that is if all we do is love love people. And we never say, well, here's why I love you, and here's why I'm treating you the way that I am, because you matter to God. If we never say that, if we never say, somebody loved me and helped me see that I mattered to God, and Jesus changed my life, then we're doing really a disservice to people, and we're being nice, but Jesus wants us to be more than nice. He wants us to be nice and pull people in to the boat as well. So there's kind of that two-pronged thing that's going there that we've got to make sure we don't miss out on.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last, 9 months have been a lot of upheaval for us as a church, but even before COVID, we started to begin to kind of change our approach to ministry. And so what does that look like as a church for us to really focus on getting people to our buildings versus getting Jesus to where people are?
Yeah, well, you guys may have heard us say it before. Probably now 4 or 5 years ago, some of our leadership team went down to spend several days with Chick-fil-A at their headquarters in Georgia. And while we were there, they continually talked about the fact that their job is to sell chicken. It's not to get people into their stores. And I mean, if you've been to Chick-fil-A at all, especially in Lancaster at Belmont, I'm just amazed how crowded that place is.
Always a line
constantly.
around the building.
Yeah, 2 lines. And so it's amazing. And people will wait 30 minutes. But all that to say, the goal isn't necessarily to get people into their buildings for Chick-fil-A. They say, we're in the chicken business, and our goal is to get chicken to the people. And so it's great that they're coming to our buildings. But they would say, but somehow we've got to figure out how do we get chicken to the people that don't come to our buildings? And so that challenged us as a leadership to say, okay, we're good at getting people to our buildings, but what are we doing to get Jesus to the people, so to speak? So we started working then on just figuring out what might that look like online. And the cool thing is, about a year and a half, 2 years before COVID hit, we really began to invest heavily on our online presence and technology to say, what can we do to make sure we're strong online? And we knew that we needed to be moving that way. COVID probably accelerated that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it made it possible so that now in the midst of COVID, we can all still connect. And I know for everybody it's not perfect. And some people say, I just need to come into the building. Totally fine. I get it. And I love being in the building with people, but also, it's great to be able to watch online and connect if there's not that other opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the fun things for me is I lead a lot of online groups. And so there's always people popping in from other states who never would have been part of our church if we didn't have that opportunity. And they're not connected with other churches. They heard of us through friends or however, and now they're engaging with us and we're their church.
That's really cool. Just like, I told the story about the Sarah in the message and just how it's impacted their family.
Yeah.
Even my family, my sister and her husband, my niece, my dad are all watching in the Houston area. And what they keep telling us is, man, if we can ever go back into our buildings in Houston where they live, they said, LCBC is our church now, and so it's going to be a challenge to figure out how to go back. So
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
well, it's a good
cool
challenge.
thing to do
yeah.
that. Exactly.
So groups, what we'd love for you to consider as you head into group this week, but as then you go on to Thanksgiving, as you're interacting with family and friends, is there's still a lot of tension in our world. There's still a lot of things people are reeling with right now, from COVID to the election that's not finished yet. And so what does it look like for you to represent Jesus well and keep that mindset of others first as you head into the holidays? So thanks for hanging out with us again for week 7 and throughout this series. And David and Jason and Matt, thank you for the time that you've given to just be able to be here and unpack that with us. We really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you, Jason. Glad to be here.